All right. Good morning, afternoon, and hello. Welcome back to Mansoor Studios. What we have here is a project I'm working on called Static Wisps. And the idea behind this project, is a sci-fi themed world. And I'm planning on putting, like using 3D models as reference for different things. And the idea of this project will be to encompass everything I like to do. So writing, 3D modeling, and music, into trying to make some kind of project out of it. So let's say like a short film, an animation, a game, if I can make it happen. And so I'm tackling this project, the Static Wisp project, one step at a time. So this video that you're watching as I talk to you is about a construction mech that I plan on calling Slinky, but I think the original name is CB something, it's construction bot, power lifter. So I think it's CBSPL 1546. I think that should be right. Yeah, that's like the model number of the machine. But, in the description of the other video, it says, that this robot is known as Slinky by the construction workers on site. And so I'm just going to do some world building and lore building along the way as I do these videos, building out the assets, trying to make my dream a reality. I want to make my own IP one day. I guess I'm doing it right now, really. Yeah. As you see in the video as well, I'm going to stop saying this. I think it's kind of breaking the immersion a bit, but yeah. So as you can see, I turn on the screencast feature, so you can also follow along as I speak about, the channel updates and what I have in mind for myself, and better understand what's happening here. So for starters, I think I'm going to start pivoting the channel away from music exclusively. Instead, I post everything in relation to each other. And my idea of that will be, in this case, Static Wisps. I make a soundtrack, a musical piece to go with it. I make a few 3D models that are set in that setting. So we got some robots here, we got the music, and then I'll write something, so like a short story. I have one short story already. I have one short story and one non-canonical story that I kind of scrapped. It was older. So I have those, one thing from each discipline, so to speak, correlating to this intellectual idea of Static Wisps. And so these videos will be centered around those things. So we have a video about me modeling, we have a video with some music, or we can just put them all together into one set piece. For example, with old Slinky here, an idea I have is I'm going to, of course, finish modeling this. I'm having a lot of fun, by the way. I'm going to model out this. I want to make the model, rig it, and I plan on animating it. And in the scene, I plan on having, the robot working on a construction site with, custom soundtrack, custom visuals, and be like a looping diorama. Not a diorama, so to speak, because we're not going to see all around it, but it'll be like a scene with the robot doing his things, his duties, with some music playing. And that's an idea I have for this. And by doing so, I want to build up my experience and be able to do something more bigger, more daring things. Maybe like go on for a 30-minute film, so to speak. A 30-minute film, to say. Granted, that will be quite intense on my computer. That's another thing we need to consider as well. Render times. So on that last Static Wisp video, I experimented with the render times. Because you see, I'm not really using a gaming PC to say. I have no GPU, just the Intel integrated graphics. And rendering animation with Intel integrated graphics, it's not the best experience, but it works. So that's the main reason why I'm focusing on robots right now. Hard surface modeling. And I'm trying to keep it as low poly as possible. I mean, I guess it's kind of mid poly. Look at all those polygons. Yeah, I like my details, but I can't help myself really. So, to render, I think it was a 16-minute animation for static wisps, which is in the animation there are things like the idle animation. There's also an animation of the robot looking around in there as well, and like pointing the cannon as it like scouts the area. That whole animation, or I should say, the rendering process of the frames used to make the animation took about 3 days. So for 3 days, my computer was left on and to render out the images. And then maybe I got an additional 3 days, maybe 2 days. It's slightly faster after you get the rendered images out, because then you pull those images back into Blender and you can compress those images into an actual video. The images are the frames. So you render out your frames, then you put the frames together into a completed video. And yeah, so that entire process of creating a 16-minute animation took about 3 days in render time alone. So what my workaround for that was, instead I think I rendered out a 10-second animation. Yeah, 24 frames per second. I remember there was about 240 frames in that animation. So a 10-second animation clip. So Blender rendered out 240 frames. Then I took the 240 frames, turned that into a video. And what I did, instead of making a very long animation to fit, with a very long video, because it's supposed to be an animation for a music video that had, for a music video that's about 60 minutes long, because we have Static Wisp and it played every version of the Static Wisp soundtrack. And so my workaround was that instead of doing all that animating and exporting in Blender, I pulled it over into my video editing software and just, put them together in there. And since they're the same animation, they can fade in and fade out and you wouldn't notice a thing. So really what you're looking at in that Static Wisp video is about every 10 seconds. The video fades in and fades out onto itself. Well, it looks like one continuous image or one continuous video. Yeah, that's a bad way to word it. Yeah, so that's a workaround that I found after a lot of research. And thank goodness. And that's the same approach I'm planning on applying to this robot. We're going to make a short animation, about 10 seconds, maybe 15 seconds if I, be able to fit that in there, make it look good, and loop that and put that into the song or into the video. Granted, I still need to make the actual song too. Now, an interesting thing I was thinking about is, or more like asking myself, is what makes Static Wisps unique from any other sci-fi show or thing out there. There's so many of them. And really, when I come to this idea, I kind of pull together everything that I like from sci-fi, leaving out all the tropes and stuff that I really don't care for. Like, for starters, I like robots. I'm a fan of mechs, everything mechanical, the moving parts, the augments. I really like that part. And so I think the focus of Static Wisp would be like the let's say, I guess the event horizon between biological and mechanical. How much mechanical can you add to the biological before you lose the person that's wearing the augments? For example, I plan on having a antagonist in the story. You can literally say that she's heartless because she has a mechanical heart. But would that mechanical heart make her any less of a person? Like, what's happening here? We equate a lot of things to heart, like a heart of gold, a kind heart. So really, it's those interesting dilemmas I like exploring using the sci-fi genre. It's going to be set in a cyberpunk setting, where augmentation is rife. That's the right word. Prevalent, but she's prevalent. There we go. It's very prevalent, and I think I lost myself there. I got too busy looking at words to use that I kind of almost lost my train of thought. So let's pull it back. What is unique about static wisp? So we already talked about, juxtaposition between man and machine, right? So you're going to be like, how much machine can you put into man before you lose the man? And how much man can you put into machine before the machine becomes man? That kind of cliche. So we have like Slinky here, right? A construction mech made by the Terra Firma Corporation. And, despite the big, bulky, mechanical equipment, it turns out to be a very nice robot, like very sociable. I wouldn't say sociable, but I guess agreeable. There we go. Very agreeable, kind-hearted for, a mechanical being. There's no person in there, it's a robot. And we have characters that would have made a transition from robot, from human to robot, the classic cliche of integrating one's consciousness with cybernetics. So engrams, you put your conscious on a cyber chip, on a circuit chip. My gosh. On a computer chip, that's the better word. I mean, I'm very aware, by the way, that these cliches have been done forward and backwards. For example, my main character, Maximum Valorant, or Max Valor for short, is very similar to the protagonist from Demolition Man, being a person from like a separate time, like from the past, waking up in the future after being, frozen in time, or in a capsule after a period of, after some undisclosed period of time. And then, of course, we have the idea of the engram, or the like the little brain chip. Not really the brain chip, but the idea of putting someone's consciousness on a chip. That's also already been done because, recent Cyberpunk game did that with like Johnny Silverhand, Keanu Reeves' character. And then also we have that same thing pop up in an older media piece. I think it was Alita Battle Angel. I used to read that manga actually. And it just kept going. And going. It just kept going, really. I had to put it down after a while. So, yeah. In that one, too, there's the people there who, entire society, put their entire consciousness on chips. That's the thing. So, a lot of these tropes aren't new at all, but I plan on implementing them in some kind of interesting fashion. Like, I want to have the reader question, is this a person? Is it not a person? Does it matter if that's a person I'm interacting with? Some things like that, subtle things, and ticks, and that kind of make the conversations intriguing. Now I'm going to pull it back to the video here of me putting together the robot. And so, let's see. Yeah, so for starters, I took my liberties in making every part actuate. So that's one mission I wanted to do. I like robots that have moving parts, and I want every joint to make sense. Okay, so like in the elbow, we want to see the piston connect to something in the elbow and be able to drive the movement. So every part that moves has another part that is moving. So like if you see the connection from the torso to the arm, there are several pistons there, and those pistons have ball socket joints that can allow the shoulder to rotate up, down, and pivot in and out, kind of like our own shoulders. And then I also added the longer pistons. That's a new addition there. So I hollowed out the upper arm to make room for the long pistons. It'd be something akin to what you see on an excavator. And so you can lift the elbow up and down. They're still debatable that on the big arms, those are what I call the hydraulic arms and the scene hierarchy here in Blender, It's debatable if I'll make the fingers hydraulic too, with the cylinders and all, because they're not really that important. Maybe I might change that. I mean, I'll update you when I do. Yeah, nonetheless, in this mesh, I'm editing everything to make room for those parts that will allow the limbs, legs, arms, everything to move. It's taking more time than I expected, but I'm enjoying it. I like seeing the robot come together, piece by piece, and making everything make sense in the design. And making sense is also something I want to do with the sci-fi cyberpunk world of static wisps. I like it to be a bit plausible. I like the idea of hard sci-fi, and also of hard sci-fi. And maybe try to sneak in some mysticism, some kind of like interesting undertones of magic, just to spice things up. Because oftentimes, what I see in sci-fi, it goes so hard into the sci-fi and technology that it almost becomes magic. It's like, oh, the guy's arm just transformed into a blade and it morphs perfectly. And there's like no seams or openings to permit that. Like the shape of the arm is completely different. It does not account for the space change or anything like that. And I like the idea of, it's something else really, if you ask me. And so my idea would be, I want to keep the sci-fi and scientific aspects of it plausible. Like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense, right? So you can kind of see things coming, and when things do happen, it makes sense. But also leave room for more interesting things. One idea I really like is for the main antagonist to be, the classic rich corporate CEO. They have everything. They have all the money. They have all the tech, but they're not interested in the money and the tech. They're more interested in the things of old. And so the idea is, what if we have a very rich person with all the technology in the world, but with no interest in that technology, instead searching the past for artifacts and relics and knowledge that's been lost to time. Right? So sci-fi CEO owner looking for magic. Pretty much. That's essentially what it is, really. That's one of the character's goals. And I find that kind of interesting because I have not really seen the mixture or the combination of sci-fi and fantasy put together. Granted, sci-fi is debatable. Sci-fi is fantasy, but like low fantasy, magic, Dungeons and Dragons. Not really Dungeons and Dragons, that's maybe, just magic in general. Because technology is often used in lieu of magic. So I want those two things that have their own place in the world. So we have the plausible, the things that make sense, the technology, but also the mystic. Like if you see someone come back to life on the operating table, was it because of a life-saving surgery, or did something happen on a different plane of existence? Something supernatural occurred. Yeah. Because what I notice sometimes is that as much as I like sci-fi, sometimes it gets a bit too dry in how much they try to explain everything. And it kind of loses its sense of wonder. So I like the hard facts of sci-fi, but I don't want to lose the wonder that comes with, storytelling. The wonder of the world. Yeah, that's that thought there. Let's see. Well, other than the Static Wisp series, I have, I think, 1, 2, 3, two others. One is still kind of meh. You figure what's going on over there. But really, what kind of prompted my journey would be the fantasy series. The current working name is Rebuke and Denial. And there are like remnants of it. You can see little crumbs here and there in the channel in the form of Aldex's theme, or insert theme name here, and several other songs. But so far, all I have for that is songs and I think a handful of assets. I made one great sword for Aldex that's seen in the music video. In the video, so you see a sword sticking out the ground. That's one model I made. And then there's one unused model of a pole axe. I think that's what I have it on my computer. And besides that, not many 3D models. Because for the most part, I need to, get better at sculpting humans. Yeah, that's something I definitely need to get better at. That or pay someone to do it. Hey, maybe you can give me money and I give someone else that money to do that. Or, volunteer. It's all good. For now, I'll do what I can. Figure it out as I go. I also noticed by myself that, maybe share this in the comments as well. How often, do you think I need to speak? Because I found myself being the kind of person who's okay just sitting in silence as I work on things. So for example, this video is a video I made last night. I was doing some work on the model last night, and this is what you see here. And I found it very difficult trying to talk over this, talk while I was modeling it. So I recorded this session here, and here I am in the future. Future me is now talking over this as we go. And the style of how I narrate, how I comment on things changed a lot based on that. So for example, when I speak while modeling, the robot here, it comes across as more of a tutorial thing. It comes out whenever I model something. I'll naturally see myself coming to like, oh yes, you right click here, you middle mouse click here, and make sure you hit Shift S to move the 3D cursor. That's what I normally do. However, if I were to not speak during the recording session and I speak post modeling, so what we're doing right now, I have more mental bandwidth to talk about other things than just the 3D model I'm working on. The only caveat is that I'm very prone to rambling, and I'm very, I have a tendency to just, after I finish my thought, maybe rest in silence. So really my question is how much silence are you willing to tolerate from me? Like, is it okay how much silence I put in there? Maybe I talk every 15 minutes and then we hit pause of 5 minutes. Time will tell. Yeah, nonetheless, I think I'm running out of things to say. I'm watching my video back as we speak. I'm working on the hind legs. Oh, here we go here. This is probably better put together when you do hear the video, because the power of editing, I can cut out any moment of pause, anything that doesn't fit too well, and I can stick that into the video. And so video length will, of course, be something we tweak over time. For starters, I wanted to be long enough to accompany all the footage you see before you. So, yeah, I wanted to be long enough to accompany all the footage you see before you. And hopefully I can use unscripted too, because that will also save me time on scripts and whatnot. And keep things authentic, I want to be able to just speak into the mic, share my ideas as I, put these things together. Yeah. please do in the comments share like how, like, the comments are comments, use the comments for whatever really, but preferably I'd like to know your thoughts on the model, things you like, have a discussion about it. Let's see what you guys think. That's what comments are for after all. Yeah, so robots, mechs, mechanical parts. And so, yeah, outside of these hydraulic pistons, let's talk about the pistons in more detail. Like, for instance, I did some research on how to make these things. It's quite simple. If you guys want a video on that, please, let me know. I'd be more than happy to do that. Otherwise, I'll just focus here and continue putting these robots together. So I can, share a little thing or two about what I noticed from my research. So for starters, I feel like a lot of tutorials on how to make pistons are a bit longer than they need to be. Because it turns out you really just need to use one modifier and set up at least 4 bones. Alright? So pretty much if you look at any joint, you have the joint, the limb that's moving and the limb that it's attached to, you see. And of course, you have each bone attached to each respective thing. And then from there, after you parent the bones properly, so you have, what? Never mind, I will make the video. It'd be much better if I just make the video. And then you can see it that way. Same trying to explain it over just audio alone. Because seeing is much better anyway, so we save that for our video for another time. So yeah, nonetheless, I'm working on the leg of old Slinky here. CB, let me do it one more time. CBPL, Power Lifter PL. So SPL, series, yeah. So CB SPL 1546. Yeah, I like that, yeah. That's everything too. I want the names to make sense, so we're not going to name the robot Slinky outright, because what manufacturer would just name a construction vehicle Slinky? I want to have a very, a name that makes sense within the setting. And Slinky just merely appears as a nickname that people give it, So you may name your Roomba Bot or something. But really it's Roomba Bot series something, few numbers and letters, just for tracking purposes. And so with Slinky's model name, or the actual name given by the manufacturer, it correlates to every specification of the robot. So CB is construction bot, the S is series, PL is powerlifter, and only miscellaneous thing will be the numbers 1546, which, I can leave that to your imagination. It could be a serial number or iteration in a series, those kind of things. Yep. In terms of proportions, I'm kind of curious how this robot will work after I rig it, because for starters, if you notice, you can notice the legs are fully extended, and the idea is that these are reverse jointed legs, so they're kind of like a chicken leg, you can say. And when it's in this idle stance, the leg will be naturally bent. So you have 3 segments. You have the upper leg, that'd be bending backward. Yeah, that'd be bending. Yeah, bending backwards. So then you have the middle leg that comes in. Sorry, I started out wrong. So you have the upper leg that bends goes forward. The mid leg comes back, and then vice versa. The lower leg comes forward as well, and it really compresses its shape. It compresses shape and silhouette down to a more manageable size. So it won't be as big as seen here in the actual video. It will appear slightly shorter because the legs will be, cocked back into their operating position. ... Like a better word at the moment. And yeah, so that'll be another thing I'll have to adjust afterwards. When the thing comes together, and hopefully before I do the rigging. That's one thing I'm still debating. Do I pose the mesh now before I rig it? Or do I just make it and then rig it afterwards? And my main concern will be just the proportions and whether I'll be able to even modify the mesh much after I rig it. But we'll see. We'll see once we get there. And hopefully using this format, I can probably achieve some kind of form of daily upload, or maybe like a every other day upload. Because after all, my plan is I'm going to record these videos whenever I open up Blender. Be able to do two things at once, Whenever I open up Blender to work on it, I just hit the record button on OBS. And then afterwards I can record, I can talk about what I was doing. Or even better yet, I figure out how I can talk and record at the same time. That way it saves me a lot of trouble in the future. Because this is like outsourcing processing power for future me to handle. For instance, if I were to record it all in the moment, all my thoughts, everything that's going to my head can be said right there in the moment. However, in this current situation we have right now, when I'm talking over the video I have recorded, there's going to be a slight disconnect here and there. I may not be thinking the same thing I was thinking when I was working on the model. So I can only guess what I was working on the model based on what I see in the video. But there's a lot of variables and caveats here and there that we need to consider. And let's see here. Looks like I have about, how much footage do I have? I have roughly an hour of footage. Yeah. So I don't think my voiceover will cover all this footage. So my question to you too, this is more like, since this is the first video of many, I would really like a lot of feedback here because I have a very important question for y'all. Do you want a video of me talking and modeling my robots and rigging them, in real time? Because that would mean roughly an hour of footage, an hour-long video, hour and a half maybe. However, I may not be speaking the entire time, so I might be able to overlay some background music in the background, so that it won't be dead silent as I record. That's one format we can do. Or we can do it the other way, in which I'd probably just chop up the video, record over it, share some thoughts, some cool things I saw while I was making the model, and post into a more condensed video, maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes at most. Yeah. What's your cup of tea? Short form, not really short form. Let's say normal form, or long form content. Boy, content sounds such a corporate word, but that seems to be the lingo we're using these days. That's about it I have for y'all. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for listening to me, and this is Ishmael signing off.